The Mediterranean, that history book of Western civilization, squeezes to a narrow waist where Sicily approaches Tunis, forming a channel that maritime powers have always sought to control. Its approaches are dominated by the Maltese archipelago, tiny islands devoid of resources, insignificant, valued only for their strategic position and safe harbors. For Malta lies on one of the world's great trade routes. Whoever controlled it has controlled the trade. Malta is nothing more than a limestone outcrop in the sea. 100 square miles of parched and sun-struck rock. Its people, scratching a living from the thin soil, have learned to live with hardship and foreign conquerors. Phoenicians, Carthaginians, and Romans, the great overlords of the ancient world. Arabs, Spaniards, Norman French. It was the harbor they fought for, a base to control the seaways. 4 centuries ago, Malta enjoyed its most splendid period under the Knights of St. John. Driven from the Holy Land, they made this their base for raiding Muslim shipping. Here, the Knights withstood a great Turkish siege which broke an Ottoman army and helped save Europe for Christendom. Today, after a century and a half of British rule, the Maltese are a newly independent nation, responsible for themselves for the first time in their history. In the past, they've always been the reapers of corn, the camp followers who polished the boots of some foreign overlord. They kept to their villages and tiny stone-walled farming plots. They left the business of government to someone else. Now they are faced with the problem of survival in an international context, the problem of turning outwards a society long absorbed in village affairs and in a medieval cult of saints, ruled by the church. The center of Lucca is the parish church. Streets converge on it. Its towers and statues draw the eye. The church is the heart of village life in this entirely Catholic country. Its priests are powerful men. There is no mayor, no village council. The parish priest is the spokesman for the village, the advisor, the organizer of civic affairs. For the British colonial rulers, the church was a convenient ally. While the church remained powerful, the Maltese were peaceful subjects. And the church has remained powerful. Malta was the only country in Europe that never knew the tensions and stimulus of the Reformation. The church contained within itself any revolutionary energy by creating village rivalries over saints.
We are just inside the parish church of Lucca, just near to the statue of St. Andrews, who is the patron saint of our village. Just opposite to us you can see the statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary of the Consolation, which is second patron of our village.
In many Maltese villages there are rival factions which support one or other of the saints, celebrating the Saints' Day or Festa with fireworks, banners and bands. Like most Maltese villages, Lucca's rival factions are centered on 2 village band clubs. This is Anthony Toma, trumpeter with the Union Club brass band. Born in Lucca, he lives here with his family of 10. Industrial worker, a foreman painter at Malta's dockyard, a trade unionist, and, like his Union Club colleagues, a supporter of the Socialist Labour Party, the opposition party out of favour with the church. This is John Calleja, star trumpeter of St Andrew's Club brass band. He works at the British Air Force base nearby, plays trumpet in their band. Like other St Andrew's Club men, his politics are conservative. He supports the Nationalist Party, now in power, the party approved by the church. Soon it will be the Festa, the celebration in honour of the village patron saint, whom St Andrew's Club claims their own. The band clubs stand at opposite ends of the square. For St Andrew's Festa, they'll play at opposite ends. The bands rehearse separately. The partisans keep separate, never entering the opposition club. All this devotion to the saint cloaks deeper rivalries. In most Maltese villages, the supporters of the primary saint are conservatives, the village establishment, clerks, white-collar workers, shopkeepers. Supporters of the secondary saint tend to be manual workers, dockers, labourers, factory hands. Generally staunch labour men, they are still fervent Catholics. Argument and rivalry are endless. Which club is senior? Which has stronger claim to St Andrew?
Which is a true fact, it's a script fact, it's a written fact, that 1880 was the first band club, which is our Union Band Club.
We are registered as first. They are not registered at all, in my opinion.
In my opinion, they pinched this name of St Andrew because St Andrew belongs to both of the clubs.
But in this yearly duel, St Andrews has a crushing weapon, its bandstand.
The other band club, which is St Andrew, made the bandstand themselves, which, honestly speaking, in my opinion, was more nicer than us. It wasn't better than us, but it looks nicer than us. So we said, no, they won't have a bandstand better than us, and try to organize that one, which is going to cost us over £2,500. There are strong feelings about the Festa. For example, we got a place where we do the fireworks. They haven't got a place where we do the fireworks. So we call them, you haven't got a place where you do the fireworks. We got a big club. They haven't got a club like us.
But we don't speak about clubs. Otherwise, you won't have friends. If you start speaking about your club, which is best, then you are ready to fight, I think.
While village bands compete in honor of their saints, other bands march through Malta. But British occupation is ending. Britain is the world's policeman no more, the island base no longer vital. So time and circumstance brought independence to Malta.
After the last World War, the Maltese could not be expected to be happy with the measure of self-government they had. And we were determined, especially speaking for my party, the Nationalist Party, which I have the honor to lead, we were determined to pursue the whole thing until we attained complete independence for Malta.
But now that British power has declined, the Mediterranean has a new maritime power. United States ships are now anchoring in the same harbor the Phoenicians used. Their bands are also marching through Malta, on shore leave from the 6th Fleet, NATO's southern shield against Russia. Meanwhile, the Italians are also saying it with music, playing their own diplomatic overtures over Rome television, beamed from Sicily. For Malta, Italy is a powerful cultural influence, a possible source of financial aid. For Italy, Malta is a stepping stone to the markets of North Africa, a base she would not like to fall into unfriendly hands.
We had great trouble with Mussolini 30 years ago, who claimed that Malta was terra irredenta, which means unredeemed land belonging to Italy. But the present Italian government is a democratic government, and their great fear is that we might fall under the influence of somebody else here. And because we fall under the influence of somebody else, this somebody else might hurt them. And this, of course, applies also to NATO. NATO want to be here because they are frightened that the Russians might come here and the Russians will hurt them. And the Russians want to come here because they are frightened that NATO are here and NATO are going to hurt them.
The Malta Labour Party's headquarters in Lucca stand defiantly opposite the church. This is the Labour Party's junior band. In Malta, bands even get into party politics. Labour is the party of protest and dissent, dissenting most of all against the nationalist government's policy of alliance with the West. And nationalists fear what Labour's policy towards Russia might be if it came to power. But in Malta, Christ is king, of the Labour Party, of everyone. In Malta, the church's festivals and ceremonies mark the passage of the year. Its processions outshine those of any rival. It's 4 a.m. The great bell has tolled the Paternoster. The first mass of the day is in progress. Many of Lucca's people, especially the women, come to church once a day. Some of them come twice. About 85% of the population attend church regularly. On Sundays, nearly 1,000 masses are celebrated on this tiny island. This is a country of simple Catholic faith. old-fashioned in its rituals, fervent in its expression. Five o'clock. The early shift at the dockyard waits for the bus that takes them to work. "20 minutes ride in the bus carries them from a rural village into the world of modern industry. The Malta dry dock was inherited from the British Navy when its fleet retired from the Mediterranean. Enlarged and modernized with British aid, it is now a commercial yard, cleaning and repairing merchant ships, especially tankers. But the closure of the Suez Canal cut business by half. Now it's struggling for work in tough competition with other Mediterranean dockyards. The dry dock is nationally owned. It's the island's key industry. But a British firm of engineers runs the yard as managing agents. There are no experienced Maltese who could take over, only men in the lower ranks of management, still feeling their way, still at a disadvantage with their fellow Maltese.
The only drawback we've got is that during the Admiralty, all English personnel were being supervised in this yard. But now, as we had the Maltese dockyard under local government, we've got many Maltese doing such jobs as foremen, departmental managers, and such like. Now we're finding it a bit difficult with all the men which were being governed by English personnel to be governed by Maltese personnel. When they see an English supervisor, they fear much more than they fear a Maltese personnel. For example, as a Maltese supervisor, I find it sometimes difficult to control all the men under my supervision because they say that I'm a Maltese man. But discipline must be inserted here. I'm a father of 10, so I know what discipline is. I have to bring up a wife and 10 children. So when I come here as a foreman of painters, I have to bring another 10 gangs with 10 men each, which is 100 men. So as I do home, I govern my home with my wife and my children, I have to do the same here.
Halfway between village and industrial society, the Maltese worker is finding adjustment hard. It's hard to change from the leisurely pace of Admiralty work to the cutthroat business of commercial repair. It's hard to accept that life is much less secure than it used to be. Labor disputes, pay demands, and strikes have disturbed the scene. But larger problems loom. Russia is making diplomatic excursions for friendship visits by Soviet squadrons. NATO has a headquarters here already. Malta is now finding that independence involves making painful and delicate choices. The Malta government hopes to tie itself firmly to Western powers. Other Maltese hope wistfully for neutral status. Meanwhile, down at the dockyard, the difficult job of making the industry pay is the only concern of the British manager Cliff Morley.
Well, politically, this is not my concern, but certainly commercially we'll repair Russian ships as well as anybody else's, as indeed we have done. This past 3 years we've done work on all the Eastern country ships, except China, I think, is the only one. We did a lot of business with Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Poland, East Germany, Russia, and so on. Why shouldn't we? We're a commercial organization trying to get a living from whoever wants to come to us.
We don't like this, NATO and Soviet Navy coming here and so on. We would like, and we're most eager to see that our people earn their living through tourism and industry and agriculture and fishing, not just by becoming stooges of some other nation who use us for war purposes.
Malta, which has suffered so many conquests in the past, now seeks only the more peaceful invasion of tourism, hoping that its image as a fortress can be changed. At present, only English tourists come in force, being barred from more sophisticated watering places by currency problems. But from Lebanon to Morocco, 100 resorts compete for tourists, most of them with long experience in providing for the needs of tourists. all of them with just as many natural beauties. Without natural resources, Malta needs factories that process other people's raw materials. Under British guidance, she's trying to attract foreign companies here, with tax concessions and cheap labor.
The types of industries that come here and the size of industries must necessarily be small. After all, this is a small island. One of its grave limitations is that it is small. You can't put too many hotels on it or too many industries, otherwise they'll all be toppling into the sea. And we've got to plan the whole thing with that very obvious limitation in mind. But otherwise, I think the prospects of the changeover are very much better than were thought. A year or two back, when the rundown was announced, people got very excited and disturbed, very naturally.
8 o'clock. And John Kalea leaves for work at Lucca Air Base, half a mile from home. "26 years ago, Italian and German bombers were trying to smash Lucca airfield. Right in the line of fire, half the village was destroyed. But Malta's stubborn wartime defense earned it the George Cross, Britain's highest award for civilian bravery. Today, the RAF keeps only a few reconnaissance squadrons at Lucca. By 1972, the airbase will be closed. Three more years and John Kalea will be retrenched, he and thousands like him. Maltese who work for the British services as clerks and drivers, technicians, laundrymen and cooks. Some of them will find other jobs. Some will join the 5,000 already unemployed, a large number for a tiny place like Malta. When the last commanding officer has taken the last salute, when the Union Jack is lowered for the last time, and the last barracks gate is closed, what will they do, they ask themselves? Where will they go? And how will they feel?
When I finish from the service, another 3 years, I should think, if I don't find a job in Malta, I will emigrate to Australia, where I have a lot of brothers-in-law and father-in-law, mother-in-law, about 12 of them there. And I settled there then. And I don't call this emigration. I mean, it's not emigration because you want to, you have to. You emigrate because you have to. It's not because you like to, but you have to go.
The island is overpopulated, and many have had to emigrate already, often to suffer the loneliness of separation from their people.
I miss all my friends, and I play with local bands, I miss them all. And you miss the atmosphere, you lose your country in a way, and you won't be sure if you settle in Australia. I mean, a lot of people go there and then become homesick because of the air, of the friends. They lose a lot of friends, and you might come back. Even if you suffer hunger, you just come back.
Forgotten squadrons of British airmen quietly moulder on the wall of the Lucca bar they once filled with noise and drinking. Now the village workmen have it to themselves, coming in here in their morning break for drinks and shelter from the heat. 11 o'clock, and the hawkers are making their rounds of the narrow streets, calling the housewives out of their dark, cool houses with offers of cheap goods. Apart from the old men yarning away the morning in the village plaza, this is the time of day when Lucca belongs to the women. There are no supermarkets, no department stores in Lucca, only the little neighborhood shops. This is how the women spend the meagre wages their husbands bring home, less than half a British worker's wage. These are the staples of their diet, the undersized fish that come from around Malta's coastline, cheap vegetables and fruit. Half a mile away, it is the 20th century, but here in the village plaza, some things are as they've always been. A priest collecting from the village for the church funds, laughter and conversation and gossip. The village simpleton. In spite of television, cars, electricity, Lucca is curiously remote, still part of the rural tradition, with goats and horses in the streets, with the stone-walled wheat fields just outside the town. Ladies hobbling from the church in black foldettas, the stiffened cloak in which Maltese women concealed themselves for centuries. But change has come too, of course, often for the better, though without ever managing to change the Maltese out of recognition. Yet the changes are coming. Time was when a man would decorate his cart or truck with the saint's name. Nowadays, the signs show other interests and other influences. Malta's national income per capita is the lowest in Europe. Here in Lucca, many women, watching pennies all the time, cook the family's midday meal in the village baker's oven. Wages being low and fuel expensive, community cooking is the only remedy. Meanwhile, living costs are going up under pressure from the growing tourist industry. It's after 12 now. The midday meal is on the table. When that is finished, Lucca will draw its curtains and close its shutters. For this is the Mediterranean, and 1 o'clock, the time of siesta. 4 o'clock. The village is humming again. Shops open, the men go to their bars on the plaza. Deserted streets fill with people and animals once more in the cooling air of afternoon. For the men, there are bars and band clubs. For women, only their homes, where groups might meet to make the traditional Maltese lace. Apart from their homes and the casual contacts of street and square, their only social club is the church and its religious societies. It's the women who go to Mass most often, the women who listen most respectfully to the priest. They are the conservatives of Maltese society, the firmest resistors of change. The women's faith, like the faith of women in many Catholic countries of the Mediterranean, centers on the worship of the Virgin Mary. More prayers are offered up to Our Lady than to Christ, and such things cause concern to the clergy trying to modernize their church. The church provides comfort and guidance from cradle to the grave for those who conform to the will of the church. Being anti-clerical involves difficulties in Malta. Even the privilege of becoming godfathers in baptism is withheld. For those who don't conform, the church has sometimes refused the rites of proper burial. Malta is a tiny place. 300,000 people have little room to spare on an island of 100 square miles. There's not enough space for farms and wheat fields. Land is parceled out in tiny plots. In village cemeteries, space is also short, and disparities between the affluent few and the many poor are seen plainly here. Only those with money can rest their bones in a permanent family grave. The rest are disinterred after a few years, their bones thrown in a common grave and the coffins burned. This is a country of simple faith, with a very literal view of heaven as paradise and of hell as a place of eternal fire and burning. The anti-clerical Labour Party claims that here in the cemetery, the church has wielded the ultimate sanction against its opponents.
Any member of the party who died and was known to be a member of the party was buried in a stretch of ground without the slightest sign that this is a burial ground. And locally, of course, this is called the rubbish heap, because it's not how you bury people in this world. Also, of course, the church carried out various pilgrimages all over the island, where they explain to the faithful that whoever votes for the Labour Party commits a mortal sin and cannot hope to achieve salvation. And this went on during 2 elections.
The church only goes against a political party when this party, as such, goes against the religious interests of the people and the religious life of the people.
Well, I must say, this is news to me for the very simple reason that we had long talks with the representatives of the Vatican, with Monsignor Cardinale in particular. And during these talks, Nothing was pinpointed in our program which goes against the teachings of the church.
When the Council of the Labour Party published a statement in which it attacked the authority of the church and went against Catholic principles and Catholic traditions. And so both myself and the Bishop of Gozo had to give what we call interdict, only to the members of the council, not to the Labour Party. That's a misrepresentation.
During election time, all the voters who went to church and went to confession were individually asked by the priests, by the confessor, are you going to vote Labour? Because if you are, I cannot give you absolution.
I said it publicly more than once that I was prepared, and the Bishop of Gozo with me, to come to an understanding and forget the past. But for a long time, for about more than a year, nothing came out. Only misrepresentations in the press of the Labour Party.
The position is really one of democracy against privilege. The church has enjoyed medieval privileges for hundreds of years, even under the British, to the extent that, for instance, the bishops are above the law. Whatever they commit, they cannot be taken to court and proceedings taken against them. We also conflict when it comes to economic matters, because the church owns a tremendous amount of land, and they want this land to be completely outside the jurisdiction of government.
I do hope that with the help of Almighty God we shall succeed to have peace, and at the next elections the church will say nothing about the parties.
The Archbishop is 83, his successor determined on a peaceful withdrawal from politics.
I think the Church should remain in a purely pastoral role. Of course, there are subjects that come under both state and church, and there has to be some sort of agreement on those basic points. But in general, the Church is above politics. The Church approves of all parties which do not go against her basic principles.
In Lucca village a few years ago, a famous event symbolized the clash between church and party.
In Lucca, we were holding a mass meeting, and while this meeting was going on, two of the church supporters went inside the church and rang the huge bells so that they drowned the voices of the speakers. When we complained to the police, who were supposed to keep law and order and to stop any interference with public meetings of this kind, the police said, we have no jurisdiction over the church. We cannot do anything about it.
Boys were ringing up bells, and Mintoff said, ring up bells, how much as you like. Time will come when you won't ring any more bells. Time will sure come when you won't ring any more bells. I'm just hearing these words 7 years ago, still in my ears. And they told them, all right, boys, we'll carry on the meeting and you carry on ringing the bells. We never said something against God. We always, what we said is against the law of the church as being run now or by that time. But I'm never against God. I am a true Roman Catholic.
Everyone, Labour or Nationalist, is a true Roman Catholic at Festa time, the climax of the year, when Lucca is divided by its rivalry, yet united in celebration of its patron saint. Festa begins in the church, with a ceremony for St. Andrew, in which the patron's deeds are recalled, his continued protection invoked. This is the solemn moment of the feast in which all the village joins. Even the Archbishop has come, carrying before him a bone of St. Andrew, a sacred relic authenticated by the Vatican. The saint will be carried on a long procession through the streets of Lucca to cheers and shouts and the crash of fireworks. Almost every weekend throughout Malta's long summer, one of the 63 villages will be holding a feast in honor of its saint. No festa is a festa without nougat, a sweet to which Maltese are addicted. With the smell of gunpowder, smoke and incense, the flavor of nougat is part of the very essence of the festival. times may be changing, but the festas remain. How long can it go on? The village rivalry which has absorbed the Maltese for generations. How long before events force them to look outwards and join the rest of the world in this uniform, metropolitan, industrial century?
Malta, one kid